Hi, friends. Thank you for joining the Adventure Sports Podcast today. Today we have Caleb Burns with us. And Caleb Burns is a mountain guide. He's been doing search and rescue for 13 years. He loves the outdoors and adventure sports, especially mountain biking, rafting, kayaking, skiing, and snowboarding. He sounds like he's checking all of my boxes, so we're going to have a lot of fun talking about this. He works with SWS Mountain Guides, and we're going to talk more about their specific program in the second half of the show. But for starters, we just want to talk about adventure and what it's like to live an adventure-based lifestyle. So, Caleb, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Oh, you bet. I was thinking about mountain biking, rafting, kayaking, skiing, snowboarding. I don't do a lot of the water sports anymore, although I still do. I just don't, it's not a main focus, but everything else is a main focus. And so you and I are really parallel in the sports. Why is it that you selected those sports in particular to be ones that you enjoy?
I think a lot of it has to do with where I am. Living where I do, I'm an hour and a half from the beach, I'm an hour and a half from a 14,000 foot peak, and I'm an hour and a half from the deepest lake in North America. I've got amazing mountain bike trails within 20 minutes drive of where I'm at, and probably the second most famous river in the lower 48 is literally less than 15 minutes from my house.
Okay, based on that, let's see if anyone can guess where you are. That's quite the description. Okay, we've got the coast. Yep. It's going to be the left coast or the right coast, but based on the mountain, it's got to be the left coast.
Yep.
And I actually have some of the information already, so it's unfair for me to continue, but I think everyone should yell really loud and see if we can hear where you are. Okay, where are you?
All right, so I am in Southern Oregon, just outside of like the Medford and Ashland area. I'm in a little kind of old standing farm community that's not too far away from there. I don't like big cities, so this was great for me, and my wife likes big cities, so this was our compromise.
There you go. Caleb, I don't know about you, but I finally moved to a place where the way I say it is it kind of flips the equation upside down. Instead of living away from the adventure and trying to get to the adventure on the weekends, I finally moved to a place where I could live in the adventure, and if I needed to, I could drive to work. So what that afforded was easy access, which meant I could do so much more of it, especially like in an afternoon after work. I can go, oh, maybe I should kayak the river. I don't have to plan weeks in advance to make something happen. It sounds like you're in a great location too.
Yeah, I'm fortunate in what I do that, my work is what takes me outdoors. I have friends that have what I call a socially acceptable career, although guiding has become more acceptable anymore. When I first started, not so much. It was very taboo. But yeah, I've got one of my very best friends, he's an avid mountain bike rider, and he gets off at 5:30, and I can meet him at the trailhead at 5:45 before 6, and we get a couple-hour ride in, and then we're both home and not in trouble with our families at the end of the day. So it works pretty well. It definitely, this area is pretty special for a lot of reasons. There's some amazing places, but there's definitely a reason I was happy to come back here to where I grew up, and I grew up in the area and never appreciated it as a young kid, and now it's just like, it's kind of a little mecca. Although it gets a little hot in the summer. It's like supposed to be 100 degrees again today, so it's a little ridiculous right now.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why I like the water sports.
Yes, I get it. I've talked to a lot of people, Caleb, who it seems like most people don't recognize what they have in their own backyard, and they plan the big trips, to go to the other state where they can try things and do things. And then when they realize the adventure that they have close to home, it's just mind-blowing. And I went through a similar experience as a kid. It sounds like you did too.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. I got to travel a lot as a little kid. Traveled a lot as a young adult as well. And being away for so long, I realized how special this area was. And it just, now I can honestly say that there are very few places that I would consider moving to, just because of the access that we have here. It's pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, I get it. I sometimes say, if I didn't live where I live, then it would be my favorite place to go on vacation.
Yeah, I could probably say the same.
We're very, very blessed, very fortunate that that's happened, and it is by design. It's not happenstance. I worked for many years to try to get into the position where I could make that happen, and I'm just so thankful for it. It really has. It's provided a healthier lifestyle. So I wanted to dive into the healthy lifestyle a little bit. You've had an outdoor adventure focused life for a long, long time.
Yeah,
How do you think that has benefited your overall, like, physical health, mental well-being, that sort of thing? Do you think the outdoors gives back?
absolutely. Growing up, I was raised on, basically about a 400-acre farm. Um,
Wow.
I had the outdoors as a playground as a little kid, and then
Right.
tried to do kind of the normal thing that everyone told me I should do, and it was miserable. Tried to have kind of the normal career, and absolutely hated it. Um, and I found myself doing exactly what you were talking about. Like, it was working, the Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. My hours were longer than that. Just waiting for that
Sure.
bell to ring on Friday so I could get out and do something. Um, I ended up meeting a woman that, she's pretty incredible. Not to promote my wife, she's nowhere around, so I don't get kudos there. But I remember a conversation that we had, and she knew that I was just really unhappy, dealing with all sorts of physical stresses, things like that. Um, and she just asked me, "When were you happy?" And my response was, "When I was outside." And she
Wow.
pretty much
Yeah.
just said, "Well, why don't you find a way to make a living there?" And looked and figured out a way, and, like, it's easier now, for a lot of people coming in. Like, when I first started guiding, there was no degree for outdoor education or outdoor rec or anything like that. It was pretty much just like, well, I had the skills, I could talk to people. All right, find someone who's willing to pay me, or, like, basically a company that I could convince that I was worth their time, to trust up in the mountains or backpacking or whatever. Um, and the moment that I started that career, um, a lot of things changed in my life. Some for the good, some for the worse. But, like, overall, I can tell you that the quality of life that I have, the person that I am today, is directly related to that decision and the support that I had from her in going to actually pursue a career in the outdoors. There are stresses with it. There's all sorts of things that go along with that a lot of people can't relate to. However, what I can tell you is that I am happier now than I ever have been. It's a pretty incredible thing, and that's because of the places. I mean, it's 2 weeks ago I was climbing, and we hit just about 12,500 feet, and I somehow, like, I'm gonna say it's skill, but literally we timed it to where we hit this notch, and within 30 seconds the sunrise started. And
Nice.
it's those moments where you see that, and it's like somebody is looking in the mirror getting ready for their office job right now, and this is what I get to do for a living. Um, it just doesn't get old for me, and it's pretty awesome to be able to take people out there and show them that, and that personally is, like, rewarding for me as a guide. But just being in those places, and I don't like being around tons of people, so being on a mountain at 13 or 14,000 feet, if not higher, is a great place to avoid a lot of people generally.
Wow. I want to talk about a couple of words. I've recently heard people say, "I'm just so privileged to be able to do this." And I actually think that the word privilege carries baggage. Yeah, you're privileged to be able to do it, but you just gave us the story about the decision matrix you went through, what you had to decide to do, and the risks that you had to take to get into the position that you're in that you now love. That's not privilege. That's design and hard work. Now, we can say we're very fortunate that we love our jobs, right? But privilege is almost like, well, someone gave this to me and other people don't get it.
I
Am I
like your
am I
point of view on that.
overstressing the point? I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to get at is that it is possible, no matter who you are, to build a lifestyle that you can celebrate.
No, I haven't thought of it that way, and I would agree with you. There's a lot of sacrifice that's gone into it, and definitely nothing was given. Um, there was conscious decisions that were made. There were stresses that were and are still involved in it. Um, and yeah, I like that perspective a lot. I teach a lot of avalanche courses, and I'm very
Mm,
deliberate with the words that I use. So
yeah.
I, I appreciate what you just said. It definitely causes some reflection on using that word in this profession.
I suppose the reason I brought it up is just because I want everyone to know that you have choices and you can build the life you want. And there are some people that have adventurous lifestyles truly because of privilege. They were born into it somehow. But most people, that's not the case. Most people, it's like, no, I'm making these choices and these sacrifices because in the end, I know that's what's going to provide the lifestyle that's good for me and for those people around me. So let's touch on guiding just a little bit.
Sure.
I think a mistake that some people make is becoming a guide because they love the sport. Now, that's not a
Yeah.
mistake to love the sport. That's you must, right? That's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
But guiding is about getting people out there. So, can you kind of lean into that dynamic and explain how we should think about it?
For sure. Yeah. I'm one of the few guides in the company that I work with that's been around as long as I have.
Mm,
I've seen a number of very, very good climbers come and go. Um, Generally, people make the mistake of getting into guiding because they want to climb the cool stuff and they want to get paid to climb the cool stuff.
oh, yep.
Most people out there, we have to remember most people aren't going to climb 513.
Yes.
They're just not going to. You're going to be on a 5-7 route, maybe 5-8,
Yep.
5-9 on a good
Right.
day. Um, and you have to be okay in working in the same areas. I mean, it's fun to branch out. I work in a number of different places, but I mean, I've got multiple summits of the same mountain on the same route. We're talking about 100, and that is not attempts. That is summits. Um, and so, if it were just being a good guide, or if being a
Right.
good guide was just being a good climber, I'd be gone. Um, it I refer to it as finding your why, and generally your why doesn't have,
Mm,
in my perspective, it doesn't have typically anything to do with the climb. Um, it has to be about the people that you're with. It has to be about something beyond where you are, and it has to have a purpose that deeply connects you to what you're doing. Otherwise, you'll get tired of, I've had to tie someone's shoe at 17,000 feet. Um, if it were being just about the climb, I'd be like, I'm out.
right.
But it's about, for me, I have, and I'm happy to get into it, but there's a number of reasons I do what I do and the sacrifices that I've made. But I think being a good guide is about so much more than about the climb. It is about connecting those people and using the area that you're in to connect people to those areas, and creating experiences for them. And in my perspective, we're not in, I mean, it's a little bit technical, but we're in a hospitality industry. It's very much about the
Mm,
people that we're with. It's about caring for them and helping them so that they can then go out and do their own adventures, whether it's guided or not. I have people that still to this day that I guided, 10 years ago, that will ask about a sleeping bag for a trip that I'm not even on. And that's fine.
Right.
Like it is, I want people to get outside. I want them to enjoy it. And that fulfills some of my why. And everyone else out there may have a completely different reason than me, and that's okay. But I would suspect most people that have guided for a long period of time, it's not about the climb.
I can see that. I think different examples in my own life. One obvious one was downhill skiing for me. I very much loved it. When I was younger, it was all about becoming better at it and being able to ski more and more challenging terrain. But I got to a point where my skill set was such that to improve, I was going to have to be much, much stronger. And when I say much, much stronger, I mean, okay, now I have to go to the gym to train to ski, right? And I wasn't willing to do that. There wasn't enough in it anymore. And so I kind of plateaued. And I found myself, though I still love skiing, I love the whole experience, I kind of found myself saying, well, it's not as high on my priority list as it used to be. Maybe I won't ski that much this year, and next year I'll do more, or what have you. But then my kids were born, and I had a new why.
Yeah.
And when I started teaching my own kids how to ski, I fell in love with the whole thing all over again. Because then I was enjoying the time with them and teaching them a sport that they could enjoy for the rest of their lives. And so anyway, that's just one example of finding the new why.
Yeah, and as you just illustrated, different changes in your life may change that reason at different periods of time. And I had a similar experience. I have a daughter. When she was born, that changed a lot of my outlook, and quite honestly, a lot of my tolerance as well. I love skiing. I love the cold. Put me in cold weather any day over hot weather. However, I don't like leaving the ground anymore.
Keep the skis on the snow?
Yeah, as I've gotten older, it's like, I've learned that I still bounce. It just takes longer to get up from the bounce. So I prefer not to bounce at all anymore. So I will have fun skiing super fun lines. And there are days where I just don't go, depending on who I'm with. Like I can ski a good line, but I'm not going to go huck a cliff. That's not me. I'll watch you. I'll take a photo of you, but that's not me.
Well, Caleb, maybe you heard Jeremy Clarkson say it's not the speed that is the problem, it's stopping too fast.
Yes, yeah, the speed's great. It's the abrupt stop that causes those problems.
I don't mind leaving the ground. I'm fine with leaving the ground. It's a landing that's a problem.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. I just need a parachute and I'm good.
There you go.
That's a whole different sport.
And one of these days, I'm going to do a whole podcast on how adventure sports do change as we age and how it can keep us young, but also how we have to adjust our approach. And it's not because we necessarily get weaker, but one of the biggest changes actually happens kind of in your mid-20s to 30s, and a lot of people don't realize, but that's when your prefrontal cortex develops and matures, and suddenly you begin to understand the consequences of the risks you're taking.
Risk-reward analysis comes into a whole new layer.
Yes. So as a young man, I would just try stuff to see if I could do it.
Absolutely. I did the same thing. And now at 40, I remember when I tried them because my body reminds me when I wake up sometimes.
Right.
Like, oh, I remember exactly when that happened.
Well, that's part of we'll have to do a whole show on this sometime, and not today, but it's part of the life cycle of adventure sports.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't want to say, well, I can't do what I used to do. It must mean I'm getting old. Well, maybe. But it could also mean you're getting wise. It could also mean that your tastes and preferences are changing. It can also mean that you realize that you heal from injuries more slowly, so it's just not worth it. You want to keep doing what you love instead of waiting to get well so you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was a really hard lesson for me to learn. I had to spend some time on the bench before I realized that getting hurt's not worth it.
Yeah, I think, we're fortunate when we're younger, we do heal so quickly generally.
Yeah,
As you get older, yeah, your tolerances change. I absolutely think that, for me personally, I plan to ski until the day that I can't walk. Um,
sure.
there's zero reason not to, and I'll probably still try and figure out a way of skiing if I'm in a wheelchair. Um, I've seen it happen. But
Yes.
I think that, what prevents us from that is the thought that we can't because we're old, or that risk reward and all that stuff goes into it. But I really think part of what keeps us young is the sense of adventure, is getting outside, is doing these things, is maintaining that constant kind of just drive of being active and seeking adventure. It's when we don't
Mm.
that I think that the years catch up to us very quickly. Um, yeah, I mean, I, I don't, I don't know a whole lot of people that are really active in their 70s that just sit in the chair on their days where they're not doing something. Generally, they're active every day, and those people tend
Yeah.
to, I think, stay younger longer.
I had a friend who one day said, every day is training for tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's tomorrow? He goes, tomorrow's tomorrow, and that'll be training for the next day.
Yep.
And, that there are people that don't know the benefits of an active lifestyle who may hear this and say, well, why to go to all that work? It just sounds like a lot of work. Can you explain why it's worth it?
Yeah. I don't know if I fully can, but I will try.
Thanks. Yeah, give it a shot. I think you would know.
I live my retirement every day,
Mm,
whereas I know people that work their entire life to have 3 or 4 years of what I get to experience for 30 or 40 or longer.
right.
Um, I can honestly say, unless something really crazy happens and I don't buy lottery tickets, I'm not gonna be financially rich at the end of my time. But, and it sounds very cliche, but the memories that I will have and that I will have created
Right.
will be my reward. Whereas I don't think that I'm going to have many I wish I would have when I'm old. There are, as we alluded earlier, there are sacrifices that are made to have the profession that I do. There's
Right.
things that I've missed. However, I mean, I've watched for New Year's drinking a glass of champagne. I've watched an erupting volcano, right? And it's things like that people that don't have active lifestyles or don't seek adventure, and this sounds maybe a little bit. I really don't want it to sound as I know it's probably going to, but like people that work their entire life and never adventure will see that in a postcard. Whereas,
Yes.
like, I didn't even take a photo of it, and I still remember the exact colors. I still remember the sound, the smell, everything. That is what an adventure lifestyle or just being outdoors and seeking adventure provides, and why it's worth it, to me, at least.
You know what? You mentioned memories. Can we tap some of your memories? I'd like to hear some stories about these experiences. Can you tell us about, I mean, you've already mentioned a couple of just mind-blowing things like being at altitude as the sun rises or watching a volcano erupt, I mean,
Yeah.
but tell us an adventure experience that you had that just kind of blew your mind.
Hmm. Um, yeah, so I've got a couple. Like one of my favorite stories is the first time I went down to Mexico to climb. I went with a company that I work with, and went with a couple of the owners of the company at the time. and it's a pretty amazing trip, kind of right in central Mexico. We end up kind of climbing a series of peaks, and we end up on hopefully the summit of the third tallest peak in North America, or it's Orizaba, or Pico de Orizaba. I remember, so everything's gone great on this climb, and we're climbing the north route on Orizaba, which this was the highest altitude I ever been to. One of the people that was on this trip is a really good friend who is one of the owners of this company, and he and I were kind of like brothers that would just banter back and forth. And
Right.
I had boots on that were very similar to like the Nepal Evo, just a single layer leather boot. You don't have to have anything really big. But this particular day it was beautiful, but it was really cold. The way that Orizaba sits, there's nothing in between it and the Gulf. And if winds are coming out of the east and you're climbing on the north, you're in the shade and getting wind blown the entire time until you're
Right.
about 100 feet from the summit, depending on timing. And then it's like one step, and at the peak of that step, your face gets sun. And then as soon as you come into the next step, you're back in the shade, and you're doing that for 15 minutes. So it's like, I know it's there. I know it's there. At about 17,000 feet or so, I couldn't feel my feet anymore because they were just
Oh no.
frozen. And I came over the radio, and it was like, hey, I think this is a problem. And it was like, well, if you can't feel them, they're already gone, but they're still working. So let's keep going. So,
Not good
okay.
advice, but
Exactly. So anyway, real kind of like we end up summiting. It was amazing. Nothing happened with my feet. I got really fortunate on it. But when we get to the top, it was just ridiculously cold. And the guy that I was working with, he's pretty much just like, well, it's cold here, but 10 feet into the crater, it's considerably warmer. And so he basically we just hooked up a rope, and he ended up going down like maybe 5 feet just below the rim on rope, and he
yeah.
was able to take his jacket off. And it was like, we're at 18,500 feet, and I'm freezing. I can barely feel my feet, and now you're in a t-shirt down there. Like, this is stupid.
Wow.
So that trip has a lot of fond memories for me for a number of reasons, but that was also where some of the best banter that's probably not podcast appropriate happened back and forth between him and I. But it was amazing. It was great. It was super fun. And I've learned now to take bigger boots. And one of my friends who is down there, who runs a company, every time I show up, one of his statements is always like, "Such big boots." I'm like, I'm gonna feel my feet at the end of this one. So that one was
Wow.
a lot of fun. Also, one of the worst four-wheel drive roads I've ever been on. All the way into our camp at 14,000. It makes the U.S. Overlander trucks look like little kiddie toys. It's pretty ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's
Boy,
one
there's
of
so
my
many
favorite
places we
stories.
could go. There's so
Yeah.
many places we could go from there. Maybe tell people what the good advice would have been before we move on to the next story.
Well, A, don't go into the crater of a volcano to take your jacket off. um, B, take bigger boots. And I would also say, if you don't feel your feet anymore, you should probably turn around and start heading down to actually get yourself off of a glacier and start warming things up a little bit. But it
Yeah.
was it was definitely I was amongst people that I felt very comfortable with. One of them was an actual ER surgeon, so I was getting a lot of garbage from a lot of different directions that day.
One thing too that people may or may not know is that when you're at altitude, hypoxia can make it harder to keep your extremities warm because
Yeah,
you don't have enough oxygen to fuel the fire. And
yeah,
so going down can help in more ways than just finding a warmer climate, just getting more oxygen into your body. So,
yeah.
anyway, so that sounds like a cool experience. So, how tall is that mountain total?
So Orizaba is 18,491 feet. It's a pretty
Wow.
amazing peak. It's an incredible peak for those that want a good introduction into higher altitudes and what we can get in the lower 48. but the beauty of it, like Mexico, I love that area for a number of reasons, personal and just professionally. It's pretty incredible, but it's also very affordable to get to. You can fly into Mexico City pretty reasonably from anywhere really in the U.S. And there's a number of local services down there. There's pros and cons of some of those, and then there's a number of U.S. outfitters that also work down there. And generally speaking, the trip that we offer has 3 peaks in 10 days, so it's pretty incredible to where the first peak is about the same height as Mount Whitney, and it's one of those weird expeditions where maybe you're not feeling great on the first one, but that doesn't kill the entire expedition for you. You can make an attempt at the second one and like continue on. So it's a really unique trip that is affordable for most, and it's culturally incredible. I think that there's some of the most genuine, amazing people that I've ever met are down in Mexico. It's a pretty special area that we get to travel through on those trips.
So Caleb, I want to ask, why would someone not just go down there and do it on their own? Why should they work with a guide company? What are the advantages?
Yeah, there's a number of them. So, there are people that have definitely done that, and they've been totally successful at it. Working with a guide, we are looking at more than just the route. We're looking at the process and getting into it, and especially on a higher peak like that. I can tell you another story that I wasn't a part of, but the story is very passionate. But there were some people that went down to ski Orizaba. They left their work on a Friday, climbed Orizaba, skied it, and were back at work on Monday. Well, there's a lot more to that story, including why you should hire a guide. We're monitoring how you're doing at altitude. We're monitoring food. We're handling all the logistics. Generally, if you're going with a guide, you don't have to worry about renting a vehicle. We arrange all the private transportation. We get all the permits. We deal with all the fees. We make all the reservations at hotels. We're doing all of these things, and so it's kind of like you just show up. On our trip, you show up and we handle the rest from there. A number of other outfitters do it that same way, and if you show up and want to do it on your own, you're dealing with the flights, getting in, which is fine, but then where are you going to stay? How are you going to get there? How much fuel do you need for each peak? Do you have the gear? What do you do if your gear doesn't show up on the airline? What do you do if you have a vehicle that breaks down? What do you do if you get sick on a peak? There's a lot of moving pieces that you have to handle, and if you're doing it solo, if something goes wrong, are you capable of managing that? Do you know the people to call? Whereas with the guide service, we're doing all of that homework ahead of time, and we're managing all of it, and it just takes a lot of the stress out for our guests and lets you enjoy it more than worry about dealing with the planning and everything else. And I've had people that after the second peak were like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm heading out. And it's like, okay. So I arrange the transportation. I arrange all that stuff to make that happen for them. All they have to do is just think about, do I want to be here or not? Whereas on your own, there's a lot more stuff to that. But I think some of the biggest advantage of having a guide is the technical skill for the terrain that we go through, because those peaks go everything from just a standard hike all the way to glaciated terrain. And then the safety side of that is paramount. We're looking at what's been happening on that terrain. How do we mitigate and manage those risks the best way that we possibly can? Everyone wants to go on a climbing trip, but everyone wants to come back from a climbing trip more. And that's really where a guide is that it's not our job to get you to the top, it's our job to get you back to the trailhead. And that's that's really, I think, in a nutshell, the easiest statement of why hire a guide is because you have someone who's making those decisions unbiasedly, hopefully,
Right.
to where it's just, this is good, this is not good, and here's what we need to do. That I think is the sole advantage or the largest advantage of having a guide.
I've climbed a bunch of 14ers here in Colorado, and most 14ers are just a difficult hike. But there are some that can be truly dangerous, and the only time I ever saw someone take a really serious fall, that person had a guide who saved his life.
Yeah.
It was a death fall, and the guide caught him on a rope and said, "You're fine. Let's keep going." Mm-hmm. And I was so glad that guide was there. I mean, I wasn't on a guided trip myself, which is another story. I had dozens and dozens of mountaineering experiences under my belt before I attempted the peak, so I had built up the skill set. But I was so glad the guide was there for the inexperienced guy that would have died that day. Yeah. And it's not because people don't have strength or they're not brave. People just don't know what the decision matrix really is.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that a lot in different climbs. Mount Shasta, where I primarily work, is great. Most people come into it and it's a non-technical climb. Shasta, unfortunately, claims lives almost annually. And it's not because people are inexperienced. It's because people don't know. They don't know where rocks tend to fall. They don't know where the route should actually go. Or Shasta in particular, it's kind of an interesting mountain for a number of reasons, but you can have a blue sky, amazing day, that goes full whiteout and super windy in 10 minutes at the top. There's people, the summit block on Shasta is maybe 8 square feet. It's pretty small. There's a great story about 2 guys that one of our guides actually saw on the summit, blue sky day. They were found 3 days later, 30 miles apart. It just kind of, those peaks, they're not all just hikes. I have a personal friend. I've known her for years, ever since I was in my teens. Her husband is extremely successful business-wise, super motivated, very athletic. He took a pretty hefty fall and messed up his face, and actually one of my helmets even, on Shasta, non-guided. But that's not to say that he's not capable. He's stronger and more athletic than me, but it's just the technique, the knowledge, the understanding of what you need to do when you're at altitude, and really like how to protect yourself as much as you can. There's risks in everything, but just to try and put yourself in the best position.
I think most people can get away with a lot of things when things go right. It's knowing what to do when things don't go right. That's where, the experience and the training and all of that really kicks in. Tell us a story, Caleb, about a time that things didn't go right. Those kind of stories are so exciting.
Oh, this one's going to put me in trouble. No, not really. This one is in my head always. So as a person, because of this story, I'm a huge fan of listening to your gut. I started really looking at psychology after this, and kind of like, what is that amygdala thing, and why is that important in our brain? I was a younger guide climbing on Shasta, totally non-technical route. I was working solo, and I had 3 people with me. One of the people was getting really tired on the ascent, and this is no ice axe, no crampons are needed on this route, and we didn't have any for that reason. So one of the people was getting tired, and I parked them at about 13,500 feet. They were totally fine. They were just tired. So it was like, you can sit here. The weather's good. We don't have anything that really is looking like it's going to be building. So I could take the other 2 people up to the summit and then retrieve that person on the way down. The other 2 summited, and we ended up picking up this person. We were making really good time. And from where they were at, I had two options on the descent. I could go down the same way that we came up, which isn't difficult, but it's steeper, has more loose rock, and there's greater fall potential. It was a
Okay.
warm day. It was warm even up high. And the other option is to basically skirt right over the Wind-Tune Glacier. There's like a little finger at the time. It was maybe 15 feet wide at the very most, and we're talking like sub 20-degree angle. So not steep, super easy. That would put us onto a little bit more easterly facing area that has larger rocks that are not quite as loose. A little bit less fall potential is how I had seen it. So I had a rope, but I didn't have ice axes or crampons.
Right.
And so I would, either direction that we go, I would have the people in rope or on rope going down this area, whether I went down the same way that we came up or down this other direction. So it was probably 1 in the afternoon, maybe 1:30. I looked at the top of the Wind-Tune Glacier, and that route looked really good. It was still in the sun. There were footsteps on the snow, and I made the decision that I was going to do a hip belay. I was going to put myself down kind of in these rocks and belay them across this like little bit of snow. I didn't want them just to go across because if someone had a fall, like you're essentially going down this Wind-Tune Glacier and you don't have an ice axe. So I kept them on rope and pretty much pointed exactly where I wanted them to go. And I was doing great as a guide on this trip. Having a really good time, making really good decisions along the way. And something in my head was telling me to check the snow. And I didn't do it. And the first person stepped in the footsteps that were already on the snow. And the second person came in about 5 feet behind them on rope. And the second person slipped, which ripped the first person out of their footing, which ripped the third person, which then ripped me out of my belay perch. So
Ouch.
we are all on rope going down the Wind-Tune Glacier without an ice axe. All I have is trekking poles that managed to come with me when I got ripped out. So I'm digging those in. You know, I've got everyone tied to me on rope. Digging those in as much as I can. There was some soft snow, but not much. Slowing us down. When the first person hit a pile of rocks, it was kind of out on a finger on this glacier, and then the second and third person came in behind them, which ended up kind of whipping me around, and then I got slammed into the rocks below them. Didn't realize that I had actually done any damage, but managed to just chip my elbow and definitely like bruised my knee, but nothing was broken. No one else had anything broken, but I messed up. I messed up really bad at that point, and everything that I had done up until that point was out the window. They lost full confidence in me, and rightfully so. And so we had this trip that was going fantastic, and we ended up getting back down to camp at almost 9 p.m. that night because every rock was
Ouch.
suspect. I think we hit the trailhead at about midnight, so we had been moving for almost 24 hours. Since that day, any trip I'm on, if I start getting that feeling of like something's not right, I listen to it, and I can, if you want, I can tell you another story. But I can think of 3 times that I'd be killed personally if I didn't listen to that.
It happens, and I don't really understand the mechanism,
Yeah.
but I would definitely advise the listeners to listen to their gut.
Yeah. I can tell a really
It's
quick story to set
Yeah,
that
let's hear it.
example if you
Let's
want.
hear it.
So, same year, actually about 3 weeks later, I was guiding a different route. I was the last guy to go in on this route before another trip that was going to be coming in with the same guy that was making fun of my feet on Orizaba. I'll keep his name silent. But anyway, before I left out with the group, he's like, "Hey, call me and let me know how the route looks. I've got a group going in a couple of days. Just let me know what you're seeing." So we go out, we get into this camp, I run up the route a little bit, maybe 500 feet up above from where camp is so I can get a better vantage point. And I call him and tell him, like, yeah, the route looks good. I don't see anything concerning. And we're having a conversation. And probably 2 minutes into this conversation, I just get this feeling of like, move. And nothing had moved up on the mountain. But at that moment, I told him, I was like, I need to go. And I just hung up and started running down the mountain. Probably 20 seconds after I left where I was, a boulder the size of about a Volkswagen Beetle let go and slammed into exactly where I was standing. Like,
wow.
Nothing had moved, but I can tell you that if I hadn't listened to it, there's no way I would have survived that. Absolutely.
Yeah. I've had parallel experiences. Maybe not a boulder crushing me, but there are times that I didn't listen to that voice and then had to deal with the consequences. And then there are other times where you do listen to the voice and everything's okay. And I don't know, like I said, I don't really fully understand that mechanism. But wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's, there's somebody way smarter than me out there on this, but the only thing that I've really read up on the amygdala and how it works is that it's pattern recognition, and it recognizes little things. And so if something is lining up, however small, that's what the amygdala is for. Is it starts to see these patterns and then come to a conclusion based on prior experiences.
Another reason to have a guide.
Yeah.
The prior experiences matter, right?
Yeah. Like I say, there's someone way smarter out there that could probably explain that a lot better, but that's pretty much all that I've read up on it, is that's essentially its process, is pattern recognition to draw the most logical conclusion.
Well, here's a two-part question for you, Caleb. The first is, why should people consider mountaineering? Because that's what we've been primarily talking about. Why should they consider mountaineering as an adventure sport that they might want to be a part of? And how can they learn enough to actually do it safely?
I think people should experience or look at mountaineering as an adventure sport, or at least try it. Because there's few things in life that really push us to a point to where it's beyond what we would normally see, but it's generally physically capable. Mountaineering, whether it's a 24-hour thing, a 2-day or a 10-day, doesn't really matter. What I can tell you is to expect every human emotion in that period of time. And because it's so confined and so condensed, it becomes a lot more intense. So mountaineering, like most physical sports out there, you learn a lot about who you are. But with mountaineering, I think it's very unique in that, like, it doesn't matter who you are. If you go to altitude, you will have some sort of effects from it.
Sure.
Some people have more or less, but there is always the physical and the mental challenge. There's very few things that will push us physically and mentally at the same time, to a point in which, it's achievable for most, but no matter how much you train, it's never guaranteed. Or like, your body might just say no, but like, it's this, someone I know says, mountaineering is one of the few sports out there, the few things out there that's 100% mental and 100% physical. It's just in what combination at what period in time. So I think mountaineering it's an amazing way to get to know yourself, to get to know your friends, to get to know even like family, if you want to dare that. I would never climb with my wife. But I think that it's one of the few things in life that can't be made easier. You can improve the equipment, you can improve the technique, but no matter what it is, you've got to put the foot in front of the other. You have to do that. And if you don't, then, so be it. But there's never going to be, hopefully, a tram to the top of Mount Shasta or to the top of Mount Rainier. There's never going to be an easy way to get up there. You're going to have to do it. So I think that, that's how I would see that. And the way to do it safer, so as I said earlier, words matter. So
yes,
I never say safe with anything adventure sports or anything climbing especially. There are risks in everything. I have a good friend who did a tib fib getting into bed.
Oh goodness.
Having a guide allows us a better eye to manage and hopefully mitigate those risks that are associated with the activity. So the way to do it safer, not to promote hiring a guide, but get a guide. Ask them questions on every trip. Pick their brain. If you're ever on a trip with me, make me talk. Get as much out of me as you possibly can. Learn as much as you can in that climb. There are also courses out there. So on Mount Shasta, there's a number of companies. I know on Rainier, there's a number of companies. If you're looking for higher peaks, I'm a huge fan of snow and glaciers. Go to a glaciated peak, look at the guide services there, and there are generally a number of skills courses that are out there. Like we offer one that is not summit based, it's merely skills based on glaciers, and we have, companies out there have a ton of options. So just find the one that is right for you and has.
So who is we?
I work and am part owner of SWS Mountain Guides. We also have California Ski Guides and California Rock Guides. It's all the same company based out of California. But so we're
SWS Mountain Guides.
Yep, which stands for.
And what does SWS stand for?
It's a common question. It stands for Sierra Wilderness Seminars. So it started in '81 by a gentleman by the name of Tim Keating, and for a long period of time it was known as Sierra Wilderness Seminars. But it's more than just a educational company, so they renamed it SWS Mountain Guides, which we just like to say that we didn't know how to spell Swiss, so it's fun. But yeah, so we offer courses throughout the Eastern Sierra, on Mount Shasta and Mount Whitney primarily as well, but then we offer trips around the world as well. So like ski trips in Japan or down in Bolivia, treks over in Nepal, the trip down to Mexico that I was mentioning earlier. But hire a guide, take a skills course. Like I'm here in just a few weeks. Like, do you care if I actually say what I'm doing here in a couple of weeks? I don't want to shamelessly.
No, it's all good.
I don't want to promote myself. But so I'll be teaching a 3-day glacier course. It's not summit bound, but literally all that we do in those 3 days is go over skills. What do you do? How do you actually manage camp on a glacier? How do you establish camp on a glacier? How do you ascend a glacier? If you fall into a crevasse, how do you actually get out and ascend the rope to climb out of the crevasse? How do you haul your partner out of the crevasse if they're unable to do so? It is merely skills focused. So we have everything from that to half-day rock climbing courses, full-day rock courses, or something as simple as I want to climb Mount Shasta. I don't want to hire a guide, but I want to make sure that I understand how to use the equipment that's needed. So we have ice axe and crampon clinics, as well as a number of other companies out there do the same thing. But get those skills, learn. It's kind of like avalanche education. Do it more than once. Refine things. I can tell you that the haul systems that we used 7-8 years ago are different than the ones that I will use now, just because techniques have been refined, and better hazard management has been discovered essentially, as far as like how do we actually protect the person on the rope on both ends.
I'm on your website right now, which is swsmtns.com. So swsmountains.com, but spelled MTNS. What I like about it is you've got the different types of trips broken down by category. You have summits, ice and snow, rock, glacier, ski, and as you click into those, you find out about all the various things that you can do with all of these sports, which together make up mountaineering. It's a great resource.
Yeah. We've got kind of a cool trip on that homepage that we're just bringing this year. I've partnered with another company, and this is back to my adventure sports and what I really love. We combined a couple of those sports in a very unique way that can't really be done anywhere else in the country other than where we're at.
Really? What's
Yeah.
that?
The raft-supported Rogue River hiking trip.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
yeah, it's a unique, like the Rogue River, that's the river that's, 15 minutes from my house. Um, some friends of mine that own a rafting company here in Southern Oregon, we've partnered with them on these trips. So all your overnight gear is thrown into a raft, and that is floated down to our camp. And then we have another boat that will go along with us. So it's a 40-mile hike in 4 days. 2 nights camping, 1 night at a riverside lodge that's only accessible by raft or by boat. So we'll have 2 nights camping, but every day that we're hiking, we have another boat that kind of follows along with us, and we'll stop and have a nice like riverside lunch. But the unique thing with this is you don't have to hike the entire day. If you decide at lunchtime you want to go rafting, you can hop in the boat and go raft too. So it's a
Fun.
pretty unique thing. And then that third night at the lodge, you actually get to sleep in a bed. You have a shower. You have a nice home cooked meal. Like all the food on these trips is going to be pretty amazing. But yeah, it's super unique and just something that is really, really special and that we're excited to bring to our guests as well.
Well, that's cool, and that's not something that you could do alone very easily, right? People
No.
do pack rafting, but you're either carrying the raft or in the raft. You're not having it go beside you and carry gear and what have you. So
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
this is one of those you had asked earlier, why hire a guide? So this is the logistics of, there's only a certain number of campsites along this river stretch, and there's very popular ones. And so we have a gear boater who's kind of like a drag boat that's basically just going to go as fast as they can to get to those sites every day so that we can claim the sites that we want. And then we have the other boat that goes with us, but then we also have, the trail guides and the people that will be hiking along the trail. So you have to have that, but then on a river, it's really unique because where the trail ends is not where you begin. So imagine running a marathon, you cross the finish line, but you parked at the starting line, so you have to run all the way back to get there.
Right.
Well, as a guide, we make sure that you don't have to do that. So there's a vehicle waiting for you at the end, and then we manage all of that getting you back. So there's a lot of moving pieces in trips like this, which is part of what we do. That's the fun side on the back end.
Well, Caleb, I know that we could talk for hours about all the different adventures that you've had, and I feel like we barely scratched the surface. But we're running out of time, so tell folks how they can get in touch with you.
Sure.
So if they want to participate in some of these trips or learn more, they can.
Awesome. Yeah, you can reach me by calling SWS Mountain Guides. So we have an 800 number. It's 888-797-6867. You can also email me at Caleb, which is CALEB, at swsmountainguides.com. Or just send an email into SWS at our info account and say that you want to talk to me. I still try to guide as much as I possibly can. So if I don't get back to you right away, it'd be generally within a couple of days. But I'm pretty well known to be able to respond generally within an hour from wherever I am. I'm here to help people get outside, not to help keep them inside. So I try to do everything I can to make that happen for you.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Caleb, thank you for your time today. I love the way that you've carved out an adventure lifestyle, and I love the way that you give people the skill set, the tools, the logistics, so that they can experience that as well. And maybe it's a great way to get into some of these sports without buying all the gear up front and taking a lot of risk and diving into the unknown. I think it makes a lot of sense to start out by going with someone like yourself. And anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate what you do.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for giving me a little bit of time to talk.
Oh, you bet. And for all of our listeners and viewers out there, don't forget YouTube. Till the next show, do get out there and have some fun.